What up, folks? Once again, it's your boy Tim, and as you can see from the title of this video, we're going to be talking about how to avoid unprofitable rides in ride sharing, Uber and Lyft. Starting out, what is an unprofitable ride? Well, we're talking stuff like driving 10 miles to pick up a passenger that's only going 2. You're only getting paid for those 2 miles. That 10 miles you drove to get that person, all on your own expense. Picking up someone that wants you to stop while they go shopping in Target or Walmart for a half hour, and you're only earning 10 to 15 cents a minute waiting on them. And the one we're going to predominantly discuss in this video is driving outside of your area, meaning you pick up a passenger and they want to go 30, 40, 50 miles away to a nearby suburb or some other city, and you end up dropping them off there and having to drive all the way back to your home area with no one in your vehicle, meaning you have essentially drove double the distance for that fare. Picked up someone, you drove them 30 miles, but there and back is 60 miles, and you only got paid for 30. That is incredibly unprofitable. And as you've seen in my previous video, which I will link to this video, I've told you before, don't ever do that. But we're going to tell you how to avoid getting in that pitfall from the beginning. Now, for us who have driven taxis back in the day, long trips were what you really wanted. It was like hitting the jackpot. But in the taxi business, most cities require that taxis post their fares right there on the door of the cab. And when you look at the amount that you made in the taxi business, or drivers made in the taxi business, it's often multiples of what drivers are making in ride sharing, meaning Uber and Lyft. I'll just give you some quick examples. Dallas pays drivers 60 cents per mile. Portland, 71 cents a mile. Phoenix, 55 cents a mile. Atlanta, 61 cents a mile. Now, when you look at what was shown there with the side of a taxi door, it's never like that. And by the way, in the Uber and Lyft in the ride sharing business, they can literally change the fares overnight. So whatever you're earning now, you could wake up tomorrow, log into the app, and they demand that you sign a new terms of service to continue driving. And in that terms of service, your amount that you earn could have dropped by 2 or 3 cents or changed in some other form. And you literally do not have the ability to continue driving unless you accept those new terms of service. In the taxi business, it generally goes through city council. It has to be voted in and all of that. And also, let's make it clear, in the taxi business, fares never have went down. They always go up. In the Uber, Lyft, ride-sharing business, fares have went down significantly. When I started dibbling and dabbling in this industry back in 2014, it's $2.20 a mile. No one earns that now in 2022. Not even half of that. You just heard the amounts that I just mentioned. Most cases, it's about a third to a fourth of what they started out paying. So it's made big differences. Anyway, how can you avoid these long, unprofitable trips? Before we get into it, let me make it clear, there is a big difference depending on what market you're in. If you're in the Bay Area, Oakland, and you get somebody in your vehicle that wants to go down to San Jose, the entire trip from Oakland to San Jose goes through a lot of densely populated towns. So there's a possibility if you live in Oakland, someone in one of those other towns may want to go back to Oakland. That does happen, but that's something you have to know in your market. How many people heading south towards San Jose generally want to come back to Oakland? If there isn't a lot of them, don't drive down to San Jose. But I'm using the Bay Area to compare it to some place like Birmingham, Alabama. If you drive 30 or 40 miles outside of Birmingham, Alabama, it gets to be pretty damn rural fairly quick. And there is no one going back to Birmingham, Alabama. If you bounce out there, you're going to be driving back at your own dime. So I want to first make that clear that this is market-specific information. It does not apply to all markets, but I do strongly believe it applies to most. So how do you avoid this? Well, my first recommendation is start by putting signs in your vehicle so that when folks do get in the vehicle, they know that you can't change the trip to go somewhere that I don't want to go. So if you put, like say you're in Los Angeles and you put a sign in your vehicle says, no trips outside of Los Angeles County. That way a person doesn't get in your vehicle and decide they want to go to Oceanside or San Diego somewhere. So you decide what area you want to work in. You make sure you convey that to the passengers. I generally used to have a sign right on the back of the headrest so that passengers, when they got in, that was the first thing they saw. No trips to such and such towns, or no trips outside the county, or whatever. Same thing, you can put it right there on the, right above the glove compartment. A sign right there, so if they sit in front, they know you don't go to those areas. And in that case, if they do want to go to those areas, having seen a sign, they may offer the tip or something like that. Make no mistake about it, we'll go anywhere. We'll drive you to the ends of the earth if it's profitable. We're not refusing to go to these locations because we don't like to drive. Rideshare, taxis, Lyft, Uber, everyone loves driving. That's what we like to do. So if you pay properly, we'll drive you nonstop. The problem is with those rates I just mentioned, a lot of trips are unprofitable. So you'd have to make adjustments so that you're not out here losing money. So my first advice is put signs in your vehicle so people don't make changes in the middle of the ride to go somewhere you don't want to go. And people will try that on you. So I understand. So make sure you adhere to that. The next issue I would suggest is avoid certain areas where this is likely to happen. In my market, airports. I do not go to the airport. I understand a lot of folks in particular markets like to go to the airport because you're guaranteed to get a trip. But the airports in most cities in America generally serve a wide area. Hell, even if you're in Chicago, the airport, there's 2 airports in Chicago, and that serves all of Cook County, which houses Chicago, and most of the 5 or 6 neighboring counties. So if you go to the airport, you don't know where that person is going. This is a location where you pick people up where they want to go. Where going a long distance is quite common. Pick somebody up from the airport, they may be 30, 40, 50 miles away. And like in cases where I mentioned places like Birmingham, Alabama, or Memphis somewhere, that person may need to be an hour away or something like that. There are plenty of places in this country where the nearest airport may be an hour or 2 away. So you do not want to risk falling into that, pissing somebody off who just spent their entire day coming home, and now they get in the car with all their bags and shit, and you tell them, I'm not driving you there, so they got to take everything out. Now, I have done that, and I will do it as opposed to losing money, but I try to avoid that. So, airports, bus stations, places like that where the passengers are most likely going to be traveling a little bit of a distance from where you picked them up. Avoid going to airports and bus stations unless you don't mind driving long distances, because that's where they're coming from. Another piece of advice I would give is if you get an airport trip or bus station or port or whatever, folks are traveling into your area from, you can always pull over. This is something I always do when it comes to airport. Now, in my market, the airport is about 10 miles away or something like that. So I don't want to drive 10 miles, find out that person is going somewhere I don't want to go, and then have to waste that 10 miles. I will pull over immediately and phone that passenger and ask them, are you coming back into the city? Where are you going? And I will negotiate if it's worth it at that point. Remember, I got to drive 10 miles just to get them. So the last thing I want to do is drive 10 miles to get them, and they're actually going to a hotel or something that's near the airport. That's a waste of money. You drove 10 miles to pick somebody up that's only going 2. But once again, they also may be going in a direction that's way away from the airport that I don't want anything to do with. So for me personally, I just generally avoid the airport. I don't want to drive the 10 miles to pick someone up, which I am totally against. My advice in my previous video, figure out how far the average passenger is going in your market and do not drive more than the distance the average passenger travels. Do not drive more than that distance to pick them up. In my market, 1 to 5 miles is about how far the average passenger travels. So I don't like to drive more than 5 miles to pick anybody up. That's what I was doing when I was in the game. So call the airport. Anytime somebody wants to be picked up from the airport, call the passenger rather and ask them. If they don't answer the phone, I generally don't go. Now, I understand in this business, a lot of folks see those numbers coming from other area codes and they screen their calls and they don't answer. You call them 2 or 3 times. If they don't get the message that somebody really wants to talk to them, I'll cancel the trip. I understand this sucks if you're in the middle of a streak or some other bonus where you got to take that trip to earn your bonus. But if you're working, let's say 3 trips for $15, that's something common they offer. 3 trips for $9 or something like that. If you on your 3rd trip, or you're in the middle of a streak and you got a trip where the person wants to drive you 30, 40 miles outside of your area and you got to drive all that distance back empty, it might actually be more profitable to you in your bank account to discard that streak, because all of the money you're going to lose driving back may actually make that streak not even worth pursuing. Like I said, if you got to drive 40, 50 miles back empty, how much gas are you spending at 50 miles with no passenger in your car? How much time out of your day are you going to lose? If a passenger goes 50 miles out, that's almost an hour worth of driving to just simply drop them off. And now you're going to spend an unpaid 45 minutes to an hour coming back, all in pursuit of an extra $9 or $15. It may not be worth it. So I have no problem. I would prefer to get the streak or the bonus. I only drive when they're offering streaks and bonuses, but I'm not going to chase it to the point where you're pursuing something and losing money in the process. That just simply may be a day where pursuing that streak is not in your best interest. And make no mistake about it, when you are doing these streaks, it is very common for both Uber and Lyft. Well, Lyft is the one that primarily offers this stuff, but it's very common for them to give you a long trip on that last one. Because if you can do more than the streak amount before an hour is up, you can actually start it over. So if you get 3 trips, $15 extra. If you can squeeze 3 whole trips in and you still got a few minutes left in that hour, if you get another trip, you literally can start another streak. So you want short trips when you're on streaks, and it appears to be fairly clear that Uber will, or better yet, Lyft will deliberately give you a long trip within that streak period to guarantee you don't get it twice. I've seen that happen. There's plenty of videos online, Ridesharing Professor and some of these folks that have made videos even alluding to they've had it happen to them, and you see the comments and all the other drivers are saying the same thing. So I suggested avoid airports, avoid bus stations, put signs in your vehicle, and call the passengers if you're picking them up for places that are notoriously known to have passengers going long distances. And it doesn't have to be airports and bus stations. If there's a game going on in your town, professional sports game, chances are there are people there that live way outside of the area. Everybody comes into the area to go to a professional football game. Football season's about to start right now, for instance. There are only 16, 17 games a year. So people come from a decent amount of distance to travel there. Now, here's something else I will tell you. Like I said, my information is market specific. Also, my information is predominantly to those who are driving for the ridiculously low base fares that are out there. If you're in a 5-time, 10-time surge, which places like Chicago routinely have, you disregard every damn thing I just said. I mean, if you can drive 50 miles outside of your area and drive 50 miles back with no one in the car if they pay you taxi rates. If driving 50 miles nets you $100, then yeah, it's not a problem to drive back. I'm talking about a base fare where you're making 60 cents a minute, for instance, like I mentioned in Dallas. 60 cents a minute, if you drive 50 miles, what is that, $30? You just drove 50 miles for $30 and now you got to drive back. So you got a total of 100 miles worth of fuel coming out of your car and you only got $30 gross. So you got to pay that 100 miles worth of fuel out of that $30, and it took you about 90 minutes to do that. How much did you earn in 90 minutes worth of time? $30 minus $100 worth of fuel? You may have made $20 for 90 minutes worth of work. That is not worth it. But like I said, if you're getting 5-10 times surge or something crazy like that, then yes, it's fine to do the trip when you're now making $100 or something. So keep that in mind for those who are in markets where you get big surges quite often. There is a significant shortage of drivers right now. And in a lot of markets, yeah, the surge pricing is going up. Other than that, be careful out there, folks, and realize that you want to provide good customer service, but realize that if the more you do that, the more you pursue giving good customer service, the more likely you are to make less money. Because a lot of the things that are sitting your way in the ride sharing business from Uber and Lyft are not profitable. Cancellations is not good service. Last but not least, what I always do, I always recommend, because they deliberately hide where the passengers are going, stop about 100 feet or so before you get to that passenger. Slide arrived on the app. Let the app know you have arrived and you are still 100 feet or so away, so the passenger may not be able to see you. You can then check, once you slide arrived, you can check where the hell they're going and make your decision at that point. You want to avoid making your decision to reject their ride while they're in the car. You don't want to do that. That's when it gets to be, you know, it can get to be hostile. I've had passengers in my car that I asked to get out, and they spent the whole day waiting on a ride, and they were pissed. And, you know, I'm a big dude, so I don't have to worry about it. But I've had some little old ladies really have some choice words for me telling them to get out of my car. But at the end of the day, you drive for profit, not charity. Driving someone because you feel sympathetic to their cause at your own cost is not why you're out here. So I understand what the passengers may be going through, but that's something you need to take up with the ride sharing companies. I mean, some of these rides are getting to the point where it almost costs you to take them where they're going. So try these measures. Let me know if you have already tried some of these. For you folks who have subscribed to the channel, we regularly talk about this stuff. I do appreciate that. And I'll catch you in the next video.